Let's talk about one of the best builds I've found for our favorite glue-sniffing Ogryn. Yo, what's up, diggity dogs? It's your boy Freelance, the guy that made a video about Darktide and if it was good or not. Most of you were talking about how you gave up on the game and hate it. Needless to say, that was my best performing video as of yet. So we're going to be talking more about Darktide. With the meta of Darktide being found, then changed because of a small balance hotfix, then redefined eternally by most if not every weapon being bugged. With the meta being defined on which weapons were positively and negatively affected. Without knowing the secret shadow magic dark arts, Darktide was just a normal game. But it's not. It's a mess. A beautiful mess. Each weapon is its own puzzle, unknowingly crafted to be unknowable. Maybe if you guys leave some likes and subscribe, we'll explore more into that very interesting bug-defined meta of Darktide. Right now, let's just talk about one build. Because in the deepest depths of Tertium, Nurgle's foul concoctions stew and bubble. Far up above the planet of Atoma, someone comes to crush it. The time to protect the innocent is over. Now is the time for full aggressive offense. It is time for the Sluggin Crusher. The Sluggin Crusher isn't as thematic as using the weapons of the Bullgyrn, but in my personal experience it works a lot better. This baby is all about knocking people down with your favorite big bappy, making it so you can both absorb and dish out damage with ease. With the Sluggin Crusher, you realize that the best form of defense is offense. Not only because it gets rid of anything opposing you, but also because your acts of aggression will be rewarded. Your Let Storm powered minigun, I mean your twin-linked heavy stubber, is just a general good weapon for both close and long-range fighting, with it being able to do great damage against specials and monstrosities without any issue. It gets even better with some extra blessings that you might have a chance of getting, and if you can't get them in 10 hours of grinding, well then, suffer. For smaller sub-blessings, I chose a faster reload speed to help remedy some of the stubber's long reload. I also made it so when critical hits happen, which is about 5% of the time, the bullet hits a bit harder. This, with the awesome main blessing, helped define why the weapon is so good in the hands of an Ogryn. The first main blessing makes it so 8 whole bullets are added back to your magazine when a critical hit happens. This makes it so you never have to reload ever, and hold down your trigger much like the gun luggers that this build is lovingly based off of. With how many bullets are already in the gun and how many get added, make it so you usually don't have to reload until the battle is done. It's made even more crazy when you get the second blessing. This one makes it so you can really channel your inner Stallone or Arnold, becoming the action star of your dream with big old arms and bulging muscles. With the weapon damage being brought up to 50% more damage depending if you're only squeezing that trigger or eternally constricting it. This makes it so any big thing you're fighting can easily be leveled, with it also doing particularly well at clearing out hordes. Besides armored enemies, of course. Come on guys, you know better not to shoot armored enemies, even if it is fun. That's why the heavy stubber is your secondary weapon. You don't want to over-rely on your gun, do you? You don't want to make it so your dear veteran guardsman won't have any ammo to pick up, do you? You know you don't want to hoard ammo. You really don't. It's not good for you. It's not healthy. Your Achilles Mark I Power Maw, on the other hand, is your Bappy. It's called Bappy because it baps constantly. This baby has one of the best light attacks for any melee weapons in the game, only really being outdone by cleavers. But it also does have great staggering power, with it allowing for some great crowd control. It's my favorite melee weapon in the game, thanks to its design and it being quite a large club with an extra bit of pizzazz added to it, even if its model is just reused. Even though its heavy attack is quite underwhelming otherwise, it has a large amount of sweep to its attacks. And with the special activation with an Ogryn pressing down a button, you get a nice shiny field that makes localized energy explosions happen, making it so everything in front of you in a radius gets staggered and hit with a devastating amount of damage, with it working in conjunction with the perks and curios you bring. The two first sub-blessings are all about damage, amping up some large numbered attacks, making it so you can clear most mobs and adds out better and deal with the specials. But the main perks are basically about survival and adding even more damage onto what you do against larger enemies that are a bit tankier. The first one makes it so on chained hits you get 6% of your toughness back on hit, making it so you can scrap with everyone and everything. Just don't run out into the middle of nothing so a firing squad can get you. No surprise that the melee weapon really excels when things are in melee range, so just be wary if you only see gunners. The next one makes it so you can continually stagger enemies and do more damage, with impact damage being up to 15% based on how much they've been staggered. So you can deal with bigger units like Ogryns and Muties, while doing crowd control at the same time with the Power Maw's special ability. making it one of the most fun and powerful damaging weapons you can have. And I totally don't have a shrine of it in my closet. Why would you think that? For you curious about curios, you usually go for things that increase toughness, health, and wounds. This not only helps your Ogryn be a larger tank, but also helps with toughness regeneration, through the one blessing on the power maul. But to be honest, they're a little bit of an afterthought, but still being super fun to play with. I would also recommend things like corruption resistance being another good alternative because losing max health always sucks, and nobody wants that. As for perks, they're all based around rewarding aggression for tankiness. In fact, if the Ogryn wasn't already picked up by the Inquisition, you could swear he was unknowingly dabbling in the conversation with Khorne. But he would never do that, right? Of course not, because he, like most shonen protagonists, fights for his friends. And most importantly, against the powers of Nurgle. First off, we have Linchpin, and this is just the best perk you can get in this level 5 slot, with it being eternally effective. And every other one is a bit too situational, depending if you have Poxwalkers to bap around or not. Instead, you get to chill out and be a bit more of a team player with bonuses affecting your buddies, while they socially distance politely away from you, but staying pretty close nevertheless, incentivizing close team play, making it much more likely that your team succeeds. Blood and Thunder makes it so your heavy attacks have a bit more power to them, while also having some synergy with stuff later on, bleeding targets. Bullfighter makes it so you and your buddies in your coherency radius take cooldown off of your charge by a considerable amount. In the best cases, you only have to wait about 10 seconds between charges. This becomes much more important with the further buffs that are given to the charge later on. Bloodthirst makes it so stacks of bleed that are applied by putting heavy attacks on enemies can make it so your damage reduction goes all the way up to 50%, depending on the amount of units hit. Blood and Thunder in this are must-takes pretty much on the Ogryn, making it so he has a crazy amount of damage reduction while still being able to move and be active. Knock him down, beat him up makes it so all your hard work and staggering enemies is rewarded by doing large amounts of damage against them, with the effect stacking up to 25 times, with it all being released in one heavy attack. So you can deal with large units with charge heavy attacks, bonking any Ogryn adversaries or monstrosities in your wake. And lastly, non-stop violence makes it so you can instantly regain your toughness every time you charge, with it being more consistent with Bullfighter, saving your big caboose if you ever accidentally constantly get in trouble, like I do. And that's the main build for you. But let's talk about another one. I made a previous video talking about a more supportive Ogryn build that was based around helping allies and sticking to the iconic weaponry of the Bullgyrn, with some poor perk choices, and the two weapons being kinda bad. I'm going to level with you. Yes, you, dear viewer, who I have most likely never met and would never talk to in my life. This build is really fun, but the weapons suck, or require a bit more finesse to be used compared to other weapons. The Grenadier Gauntlet is pretty much outclassed by the Rumbler, the classic-looking break-action nade launcher. And if you want it, you can sing it with me, folks. Everything the Gauntlet does, the Rumbler does better. The Rumbler does everything better than that. Even though it does have a smaller magazine size and ammo capacity, the amount of damage and radius of effect for the grenades is much higher. On higher difficulties, the Grenadier Gauntlet falls off hard, with you having to dump a magazine into any special. The Rumbler, on the other hand, has better horde management and is great at eliminating single targets. It does take a bit of finesse to use though, with the grades not exploding on contact and taking time to explode. Using it has a learning curve, but it will treat you right and even text you back after a bad date, being a very reliable weapon once you know how to use it. In TF2 terms, think of it as the normal pipe launcher versus the lock and load. The Bullgyrn's iconic slab shield and maul should be one of the best weapons in the game, fundamentally, with it not having great damage but amazing defensive potential, with the giant blocking shield, making it so you can be the slab of meat and metal protecting yucky guys from you cute little uns. But there are some really bad buggy issues with it. The main thing being that there's no way to taunt or take aggro from enemies. This makes it so you can be particularly useless if enemies just decide to go after your friends instead of you, which they can do and do a lot. They can even shoot people through your shield. That's right, any shots pointed at the Ogryn but meant for someone else will go through them, making it so you can't even block for your allies, being more of a hindrance than a help, especially if you're crowding doorways. And the last issue is a cultural one. The community of Darktide says that Ogryns that use the shield are a bunch of bubble-blowing babies that don't know how to play the game and are checking their phones. Don't listen to them, my sweets, you're just perfect the way you are. But make sure to help your team out more than hinder them. So the question is, does the support Bullgyrn build still work? Yes. Emperor, yes, it still can. Although the trek of trying to complete missions on harder difficulties is still going to be hard, and kinda hurt, With the build having some hard counters, the game can still be played and finished. If you want to try that build out, I still recommend looking at that original video and giving it a try. You might like it more than the current build I just talked about. Overall, just remember to have fun out there. So what do you guys think about my builds? Good? Bad? Should I be barred from the internet and never allowed to post content ever again? Or do you want to see more of my devilish concoctions having to do with Darktide and other Warhammer games, and maybe other games in general? Make sure to tell me in the comments down below. I can't wait to cover Bullgyrn that's coming in the next few weeks. Till next video, fellas.